how do you define common knowledge? Because it's quite different from the dictionary definition of common knowledge.
It is, and I can't take credit for the definition. In fact, I don't much like it, but
Okay.
become entrenched, and we know that words mean what people think they mean. And at least in the technical literature, common knowledge does not refer to the everyday sense of something that everyone knows, but it refers to the state in which everyone knows that everyone knows something, and everyone knows that, and so on ad infinitum. That is, I know something, you know it, I know that you know it, you know that I know it, I know that you know that I know that you know it, and so on. And it's a distinct state from merely everyone knowing something, particularly because it enables coordination. It allows people to make complementary choices that benefit them both as long as they both make it, but they can't both make it unless they have the confidence that the other person is making the same choice, which they would only have if they had confidence that you were making that choice, etc.
Okay. And you also emphasize on coordination. And I'm wondering, is like obviously people can move along in their lives with private knowledge, but how does common knowledge per se enable us to improve the coordination or games that we play together?
Well, it's when there is a coordination dilemma. This is a game theoretic situation where there's more than one equilibrium, that is more than one state, such that if you're in that state, you have no incentive to get out of that state, as long as the other person, nor does the person that you're interacting with. Uh, so if if you and I can meet either at Pete's or Starbucks, then if you're going to be at Pete's, then I have no incentive to meet at Starbucks and vice versa. But the same is true if you went to Starbucks, then I have no incentive to go to Pete's and vice versa. So there are two ways the game can end up, both to our satisfaction. But there are also two ways in which we could miscoordinate. I go to Pete's and you go to Starbucks or vice versa. And so we have an incentive to achieve coordination, but there's more than one way to do it. And common knowledge is necessary for us to reach one of those equilibria. And the obvious way to do it is with direct speech. That's probably why we evolved language. It is a cheap way of generating common knowledge, and common knowledge is what we need to coordinate. And coordination is what characterizes human relationships on scales from a couple or a pair of friends all the way up to an entire society.
Why did you say that language is a cheap way to coordinate each other or to acquire common knowledge?
Well, if I blurt something out and I know that you're hearing it, uh, then I know that you know that I intended to cause you to believe it, and you know that I know that you know that I know. It's anything that is self-evident, conspicuous, out there, salient, can generate common knowledge at a stroke. So we don't explicitly need to reel out the nested propositions.
Hmm.
I know that she knows that I know that she knows. It's any number of those embedded propositions are entailed by the state of mutually recognizing a self-evident event. So if I see something in a situation in which you also see it, and I can see you see it, and you can see me seeing it, that contains implicit in it the infinite states of embedded common knowledge.
So is it fair to say that if I see something happening on the street and then you see something on the other side and we both look at each other and we converge that we both saw what we saw, does that mean that common knowledge is kind of like a perceptual focal point where we've seen everything and now socially we realize, okay, like we just saw the same thing?
That's exactly right. Although I would invert it, it's the focal point that generates common knowledge. Uh,
Mm,
this is an
okay.
insight that goes back to Thomas Schelling in his 1960 book, The Strategy of Conflict, which pretty much laid out the whole logic of common knowledge and coordination pretty much for the first time. And he noted that in a coordination dilemma where there are multiple equilibria, uh, often the way to pick one of them, doesn't matter which one, better than miscoordinating, is if something pops out enough that it's each one can count on it being salient to the other, and so they'll both alight on that as the solution to the problem of which equilibrium should they settle on? He gives an example of rendezvous, um, where he imagines a couple that are separated. This is way before the era of cell phones, so language isn't an option.
Yeah.
Where will it, where can they have some chance of being reunited? He suggests they might go to the clock in Grand Central Station in New York at noon, even if that wasn't where they particularly close to where they'd been separated, simply because it would each can feel confident it would pop into the mind of the other. Uh, and so something that's a case of common salience rather than common knowledge.
Hmm.
But a case of joint attention where like the happening on in a public place where crucially not only does each party perceive it, but they perceive the other party perceiving it.
Hmm.
And one way to think about it is that it gives people to a reason to believe that I know that he knows that I know that he knows, even if they don't explicitly believe it in the sense that that proposition was mentally represented